What's up guys, my name is Your Heroes and welcome back to more Gates of Hell. Now today we are going to be looking at the Finnish late war infantry. Now if you haven't seen the German or the Soviet one, which I've already made videos on, make sure you go check that out with the link down below on the top right hand of your screen right now. But today we are concentrating on the Finnish. Now as you know, the Finnish nation is very unique because they're very much underpowered in this game compared to all the other nations, including the new nation added to the game, which is America. But if you look at the squad, Finland very much rely on other nations, such as, you know, they rely on tanks for the Soviet Union, or sorry, for the Germans, such as, you know, or a mix of German and Russian, such as the B-18, which is Soviet or Russian. You've also got the Stu 40G, which is German. So a lot of what the Finnish have is borrowed from other nations, but the infantry is all Finnish made, except from maybe the guns that they use, Mosin, which I think is Soviets. And if all of you know about your kind of gun history, then let me know in the comments down below if that is correct. But as you can see here, that actually the Finnish have, what I've seen so far, is one of the nations that actually have the least amount of infantry, you know, upgrade to the faction, whereas, you know, the German and the Soviets, you know, you had a whole scroll bar to, you know, to slide along, which were so crazy, so messy. But you can see that the Finnish nation here with their infantry, you know, all laid out, is not actually as messy as the other two nations, although it is still, you know, quite a lot of, you know, mixing lines and all that, which I still think is quite messy, but not as bad as the other two, so I'm quite happy about that. But even still, I think with a lot of lanes going everywhere, and you know, it's still quite a complicated, you know, faction for infantry to go through. But today I'm going to be going through all these units. Now, as you can see here, I haven't got all the units here in this section here, but a lot of these infantry are closely related to other units, if that makes sense. So they're all, so such as like the Border Jaegers have all kind of, they're all same type of units, but they're either lay or they're other type of units, basically. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Basically that some of them are the same, and except they're just maybe cost slightly less, or their weapons might be slightly different. So I'm not going to go through the whole of them, but I basically want to show you the new ones that have been added into the game that you might not have seen before, such as, you know, such as the Rifle Squad DP late and the Rifle Squad DT late. So a lot of these are actually new, but some of them you may have already seen, but are kind of just maybe expanded to more of the late war section, if that makes sense. Now I've got that cleared out the way, let's get straight into the video. So first of all, we are going to be starting off with the Rifle Squad DP late. Now I don't know what DP stands for, I don't know the acronym for that. If anybody can let me know what that stands for, that'd be very much appreciated. As well as the DT late, I don't know what DT stands for, again, let me know in the comments down below. But let's first have a look at the as a Rifle Squad DP squad. Now these guys have very kind of your standard rifles. Most of them are carrying of course the commander in the squad, or the squad leader will be carrying the Suomi, which sounds Finnish made. It looks like a copy of like a Russian gun, but it's actually Finnish. And what you can also tell between these two guys here is that even though these guns actually look the same, is that one's got a drum, you know, your circular drum, and the other one has a stick. So you can see that this one kind of has a long one, whereas the other gun here has a drum. So that is the difference, and I like the difference because it shows that Gates for showing initiative on kind of the same type of guns, but they're used differently for different magazines, which I really do love. So props to Gates Hill for that. So for the rest of the squad, they are carrying kind of, they look like Soviet made SVTs as well. I believe some of them are carrying Mosins. So you're kind of your standard kind of Soviet rifles, with one I believe carrying a DT-27, again Soviet made I believe, but one of them is machine gunner, which does look really, really cool. And this squad does cost 12 men with 12 men and 115 manpower, which is actually not bad. I think that's still quite an expensive side. Sorry, I should say it's actually quite on the cheap side, not too cheap, because a rifle squad itself, you know, the main general one costs 95, and that costs the same as 12. But the difference is that these guys just carry, one of them does carry a machine gun, your DT-27 probably, but the commander itself does use a standard rifle, whereas the DP squad, 2 of them are carrying kind of like your mini machine guns or whatever they're called. So they are a wee bit more expensive, but it's the same men, it's the same manpower as the normal rifle squad. And overall, these aren't a bad squad. I think it is probably worth its price that it is, and I'm very happy to say that, you know, it is very good. And one of them is a MG assistant, so it carries the main MG's ammo, which is really, really cool. I really like, so props to Gatesfell for that. Moving on, oh sorry, something I also forgot to talk about is their stamina and their hit points. So their hit points is 200 with regeneration being terrible 0.1. Their stamina is okay. It's kind of in the middle between okay and good, but their regeneration is really good with a 3.0, so that kind of makes up for the kind of mediocre stamina. I think this is quite low HP. I think for what these guys are, I think they could have been maybe given a buff of hit points, maybe 250 or 230, considering their regeneration is so low. And kind of the guns that they have as well is kind of Mosin's, which are standard rifle, is kind of bad. So I would say that I would maybe buff the hit points up, or you could even increase the stamina and keep the hit points the same. But then again, your regeneration for your stamina is actually kind of makes up for the mediocre stamina itself. But I think if your hit points, I think, is kind of just disappointing with 200. I think they could be boosted up a little. Next one is your rifle squad DT late. Now, what is the difference between these two? Now, to be honest, I'm no kind of super nerd at this, but what I can see is that 3 of them are now carrying the little machine gun. One of them is now actually carrying a PPSH, and the rest of them are carrying your Sumoi, which is your Finnish gun, and the PPSH, of course, is again Soviet made, I think. Again, I am terribly sorry for getting any of these gun country names wrong, but that's just what I'm going based on. The rest of the guys are carrying your standard rifleman. Actually, one is carrying SVT, and I believe the rest are actually, another one is carrying SVT, and the rest are carrying Mosin. So quite a good range of different guns here that these guys are able to get. The hit points are, and the cost of these guys are 128 manpower with 13 men, so 1 more men than the DP one, and it does cost quite considerably more than the DP, but you get more range of different guns. Like, you're able to maybe deal with a lot of maybe offensive and defensive range, where you also get an MG assistant, which is really good, again, which carries the MG operators, you know, ammo, which is awesome. I really do like it, but it is a wee bit more expensive. And do I think it's worth, you know, that extra manpower just to buy it? Depending on the situation, again, depending on how much resources and manpower you're already originally given. But if I'm going for between these two, I would probably just go for the DP. But if we look at these guys' hit points, you can see that, again, it's the same as the DP one, that your HP is 200, this regeneration is terrible, your stamina is, again, mediocre okay, but your regeneration is fantastic. So the stamina and HP is exactly the same with regeneration, exactly the same with your DP one. But then overall, if you're overall just going for kind of better, then you're probably wanting the DT one, as it kind of gives you more different ranges of guns to kind of play with the units. But if you're kind of looking for cheaper option and kind of your standard good ones, then go for the DP one. I think they're just overall just cheaper and slightly just more realistic. But then again, if you want to go for kind of a higher level of, you know, make sure you're ahead of the game, then go for the DP one. Sorry, the DT one. I might get those two confused a lot, just to let you know. So that is the DT one. Moving on to the next one, which is the Veteran Rifle Squad Late. Now, as you know, it doesn't actually say 1944, it says late in all of them. I don't know if that's like something that's, you know, a bug or something, whereas the other two nations have always said 1944, 1943. So the fact that they say late doesn't really give me a good description whether they're 1943, 1944, 1945. So maybe that's something, you know, Gatesfell didn't really generalize on. But if we look at these guys, we can see that most of them are carrying they do look like PPSHs, but again, they're these Finnish Sumoi, and one's carrying the stick and one will be carrying the drum, obviously, and the rest are, one of them does carry PPSH like the other one, and some of them are carrying your DVT guns. Is it DVT? I think it's called that. Why can I never select the gun? It's so difficult. Your SVT, sorry, your SVT guns, and some of them are carrying your Mosins with, of course, your one guy carrying your DP27. I don't really see the difference between the two. I guess maybe if we look at their hit points generally overall, you can see that their hit points are actually better with 230, with their regeneration being slightly better at 0.3 but still terrible. Their stamina again slightly better at 162, and the regeneration being much better at 3.9 instead of 3.0. So that's a major difference, that their stamina and their HP has increased by a lot, but the guns are still the same. And for these guys, they cost... So these guys cost 148 manpower with 14 men, which I think is actually alright. I think that's quite a good price considering that they get that extra buff of hit points and stamina with, again, a terrible regeneration, but slightly better, but I still wouldn't put anything past that considering that the regenerations for all three squads I've reviewed are still terrible. Moving on to the next one, which is your veteran and marksman squad. Now these guys cost 151 manpower with 14 men, and these guys look a lot different. Again, one of them now is only carrying one Sumoi, this one with the drumstick, and the rest of them are carrying your SVTs and a mix of moisten gun, and I believe two of them or one of them? No, one of them does carry your DP27. So kind of like you can kind of see a pattern here that there's always going to be one machine gunner that's going to carry like some sort of DP27 or some sort of kind of Soviet machine gun, which is really, really cool. And I still think that is a wee bit repetitive, a wee bit kind of unimaginative, but if you think about it, that's quite historically accurate, I guess, considering that, again, the Finnish was borrowing a lot of ammunitions and a lot of it from other countries such as the Soviet Union or the Germans. But I think overall, these guys aren't half bad. They are quite expensive on 151 men. But if we look at their hit points overall, they have a lot better hit points of 230. The regeneration, again, awful, 0.3. Their stamina of 162, not bad, but still quite in the lower end. But the regeneration being amazing at 3.9. So kind of same as the last one I just reviewed there. Overall, do I think it's worth the 151 manpower? I mean, it's very kind of close to the one I just reviewed, which is a veteran rifle squad of 148. So what, 3 points of a manpower of a difference? Not really worth it, to be fair. I would probably still go with your veteran rifle squad late one. But if you're kind of on a good mix up of, you know, having the veteran marksman squad, then go ahead. But to be honest, I don't really see a difference. You can see a difference between the two, but I don't think it's worth, you know, costing yourself more money when you could save a wee bit. The next one we're going on to is the border guard, the border guard squad. So these guys are 136 manpower with 20 men, so it does actually use up more space in your echelon area. So these guys, but the reason is because you get a lot of these guys, and the good thing with these guys is that they have a good mix of, I would say they have a good mix of different guns, but I think they just make it within just manpower themselves. Like there's a lot of these guys, so you kind of again use them as a distraction, let your good proper forces go ahead. You can see that most of them are carrying your Moisen gun, with one of them carrying your Sumoi drumstick, or whatever it is. I'm calling it a drumstick, I don't know why. But yeah, you can see that overall their uniforms are kind of cool, really nice. But I don't really see the point in these guys, I guess. You know, they are cheap, but they do use a lot of manpower. So they do use a lot of men, so I don't really think that's worth it. I would probably skip this. It's not really worth it. The hit points though, oh wow, okay, so that's why they're good. So their hit points is 300 and their stamina is 200 and their regeneration is 2.0, which is amazing considering they have 300 hit points, and their regeneration for their stamina is amazing at 4.5, the biggest I've seen so far. That is amazing for a 200 stamina hit point. That is incredible, amazing. So I can see why you kind of want that, but if you're basing it off just you know, their guns and their actual just manpower, I wouldn't really recommend it. But if you're going off based on their hit points of stamina just to survive longer, then 100% go for it. They are cheap, but they do use more men, so just take that into consideration. The next one we're going to be looking at is the cavalry squad. So there is 4 different cavalry squads. So you have the regular cavalry squad, the cavalry squad late, you have the veteran cavalry squad, and then you have the veteran cavalry squad late. So all different types of cavalry squad. Let's first look at the first one, which is your regular cavalry squad. These guys cost 168 men with 18 men, whereas the cavalry squad late one does cost you a wee bit more with 179 manpower with 18 men, so the same. I would say, again, the difference is that will be in firepower and the guns that they hold. So with the regular versions, these guys are, 2 of them are holding your Sumoi guns, one with a drum, one with a stick. And then of course there's going to be one machine gunner all the way at the end. This guy over here, probably kind of your DT-27. Yep, your DT-27, and the rest of them are going to be your Moisens or your SVT. Very standard, very good unit, and I think they are I think they are quite expensive for what you get. But if we look at their hit points, you can see that they have 300 base hit points, which is really good, but terrible regeneration is 0.1. Your stamina at 200. Not pretty good, but your regeneration being brilliant at 4.5. Again, I think this is really good. The fact that they have decent to good stamina with amazing regeneration is a really good trade for what you get, but I think it's still slightly overpriced. I would put this down to maybe 160, maybe 158. Moving on to the late version of these guys, now they'll be carrying a lot more modern guns with what you get. So you can see that now that you can see, I think 3 of them, yeah, 3 of them are carrying, 2 of them are carrying, you know, your Finnish Sunoi, or how you pronounce it, and one's carrying, I believe, actually all 3 of them are carrying your Sumoi. Previously it was 2 of them carrying it and one carrying a PPSH, but you can see that this guy is carrying a Sumoi as well, and the rest of them are using your SVT, so a lot more modern than your regular one. And of course your guy using DP-27, and of course your MG assistant as well, which is absolutely brilliant. So, and the difference prices is about 6 or 7 points in it. I know I'm not good at math, I know that that's probably wrong, but you can see, is it worth the late squad over the regular squad? Depends, again, depending on how much hit points or manpower you have at the time, and whether you really need that boost of kind of an upgrade to get ahead of the enemy. If you do want that, then get the late version, but if you don't mind and you're kind of at the early stage of the campaign, then go for just the regular cavalry squad. The next one is a veteran cavalry squad, and then you've got the veteran cavalry late. So the points is for the normal veteran cavalry squad, it's 202 manpower, and the late version is 213 manpower, with both being 18 men. But of course, as you know, the main difference will be the guns that they carry, whereas the normal one, the veterans are carrying, I believe 2 of them are carrying your Sumoi, one with a drum with a stick, and of course at the end you'll see a guy carrying your DP-27, very, very normal standard, and of course one being your assistant. But if we look at these guys' hit points, what an upgrade you're getting. 345 hit points, which is really good, again with a terrible regeneration of 0.3, but you can understand that with how high hit points they get. Your stamina is increased again a lot with 260, but your regeneration for that, holy goodness, 5.8. That is insane for what you get for these guys, considering their stamina is already brilliant. I would push that down a wee bit. I think that's actually quite high for already a 260 stamina. I would push that down to maybe a 5.0 or even a 4.9. Even then, I still think it's absolutely brilliant. But the fact that these guys are going to be constantly running, I think is absolutely brilliant. But they do carry heavy equipment as well, so they might not be able to run all the time, but I still think that's absolutely amazing. Going on to late version of these guys, if we look at them, again, the hit points and the stamina are the same with 245 and 260. Yeah, sorry, I just had to make sure those hit points and stamina were the same. Again, your regeneration terrible for your hit points, but your stamina being amazing. As already covered, I'm not going to repeat what I said, but with the regeneration being slightly lowered for the stamina. But for the gun wise, you can see that a lot of them are now using the SVTs instead of your Mosin, like the first veteran squad, and of course one carrying your DP-27. I think we should see a change in you know, the machine guns, because all of the squads that we've seen from the machine gunners have all been DP27s. But I understand you're keeping that historically accurate, but if we can add a wee bit of, you know, arcadiness in there, make it maybe an unrealistic, you know, MG42. And I know that's completely unrealistic, but how funny the community would be mad at it would be hilarious, and I still would love to see that. Moving next on to the elite rifle squad late. Now there is an elite rifle squad, you know, normal one, but I just thought I've already seen the elite rifle squad before, so I think which was already in the game. If not, then I'm terribly sorry. But you see that these guys are carrying a hell of a punch. These guys, 3 of them are carrying one of them, sorry, carrying a PPSH, and the 2 of them are carrying your typical Sumoi Finnish guns. I think Sumoi is Finnish. If I'm wrong, then let me know in the comments down below. Of course, your standard guy carrying your DP27, nothing new, with your MG assistant as well. You can see these guys, all of them are actually carrying your SVT rifles, which is a big help, considering that most of them we've seen have just been your Mosin type of rifles. With these hit points, again, the same as the last one. Their hit points is 345, amazing, regeneration terrible, with your stamina being 260 and regeneration being amazing at 5.8. Absolutely amazing. They are quite expensive with they're cheaper than the late veteran cavalry squad late, but they're slightly more expensive than just your regular veteran cavalry squad. Is it really worth it, this squad, to be fair? If you just want a guy with an extra machine gun who carries like a PPSH, then go for it, but I don't think this is really worth it. We can get a veteran cavalry squad late that basically just does the same thing, even better, so I would give this one a miss. And if I'm saying this about the... Sorry, I was even looking at the wrong one. I was looking at the elite just rifle squad themselves. The late one here is actually worth 214, and it's 18 men, so sorry, I was looking at the wrong one there, I apologise. It's actually worth 214. Even then, is it worth just by... It's still more expensive than your veteran cavalry squad late, considering both of them kind of do the same thing. I don't think it's really worth the buy. The next one, we are going on to the Jaeger section. So you've got the Jaeger squad late, you've got the Jaeger AT squad late, you have the Border Jaeger squad late, and of course you have the Border Jaeger AT squad late. And that is all of the Jaeger ones. Unless I'm missing one, then let me know in the comments. But let's move on to the first one, which is just your Jaeger squad late. Now, I know there is just a Jaeger squad, but again, I'm just missing it just because they're probably going to be roughly the same. Just the only thing that might be different is just the guns. That'll be it. So if we look at the late ones, Jaeger squad, again, these guys are looking absolutely sick. You can tell that these guys are prepared for the winter. But now you can see that one of them is carrying a Faust Patron 30, which I'm glad they're now not just copying just the German ones of the Panzerfaust. I'm glad they're kind of... I believe this is Finnish, right? Because I've not seen this name being called up before, and I believe it does look Finnish and sound Finnish, so unless I'm just presuming there, because then I'm very sorry. But if we look at them, it is actually now... These guys can actually go up against light vehicles, which is absolutely amazing, and I do like to see a different... variety in that. And also another one, so that's 2, and I believe another one at the back there is carrying, so 3 of them are carrying, which is absolutely amazing. Their guns, your standard, some of them are carrying a Mosin, with probably some of them carrying SVT, with a mix of, you know, your standard one, which is 3 of them are carrying, if you believe it, for some reason I can't move in, you can see that they're carrying their standard Finnish rifle machine gun. What the hell am I speaking today? Your Sumoi. Sounds Japanese, really, doesn't it? Instead of Finnish. But then, oh my god, I've probably now offended everyone. I'm sorry. Right, let's move on to... Oh, sorry, I didn't even say the hit points of these guys. So the hit points of these guys are 375, so that's a big upgrade again. Very good, with the regeneration being terrible. The stamina being a huge upgrade of 300, with a regeneration of 7.5. Holy goodness, that is incredible. That is... they'll be able to just sprint every time I click my fingers like that. Holy goodness, that is amazing. I think these guys do not they don't deserve a 7.5 regeneration. Lower that. That is far too much. But then again, they are carrying a lot of equipment, and the stuff they'll be carrying probably might slow them down, which is probably why they have such a high regeneration. But then again, you never know. Moving, oh sorry, I forgot to just say the amount they were. So these guys cost 201 manpower with 18 men, so it's not bad. I think that's actually very good with what you get. It could be slightly cheaper at maybe 195, maybe 190. So yeah, I think overall not a bad one. Going on to the Jaeger 80 squad late. So these guys are all about 80, and as you can already see, one is carrying your Panzer Shrek RPG, does that say RP? The guys covering your RP ZB54. These things can take out heavy tanks such as the Tiger or even the KV-1, I presume, if you aim the KV-1 at the right spot, because the KV-1 is very heavily armored. But something I've actually noticed is this: you get a machine gun with it, or does that look? That definitely looks like a machine gun. It's a 20 PST Kev 39. It does look like a machine gun, although it does kind of look like a anti-tank rifle as well, so I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comments down below. As you see, with one carrying, you know, the crew for this thing, which is really, really cool. So there's actually get a really good mix of everything. I'm sorry if you hear my dog, by the way. I'm moving out soon, so you won't be able to hear that anymore. But most of them, as you can see, are carrying the Panzerfaust 30, which is, of course, German-made, so they probably stole it from the Germans. So you can see a lot of them have taken it, which means that they can really deal with any type of vehicle in any situation, which I really love. I would highly recommend you get these guys, as they're absolutely brilliant. And these guys cost 348 manpower. That is really expensive, but I think with what you get is absolutely worth it. It is 20 men as well, so it is taking up quite a lot on your echelon space, but I really do think they're worth it, considering that, you know, you can get a whole squad of 80 guys instead of getting 2 guys, which might cost you like 48 manpower. Even though that's considerably cheaper, I would still rather get a whole squad of that instead of 2 men. Next, moving on to the Border Jaeger 80 squad late. So that was just actually they're both late, never mind. So I think I put 2 in. Actually, did I? Okay, the next one being the Border Jaeger squad late. So yeah, I thought I got the 2 confused, but I didn't. So the Border Jaeger 80 squad. So these guys cost 226 manpower, which is actually alright. I still think that's pretty good. I think that's decent for what you get. So if we have a look at these guys, they do have, again, amazing HP with 375, with the regeneration being better of 1.5, their stamina being really good of 300. Again, the regeneration absolutely insane, really, really good. The different range of weapons here, as you can see, are really good. A mix of, you know, your Mosins and your little machine guns, your Sumoi, and there's probably one PPSH in there as well somewhere that I can't really see of, and even some carrying your SVT little machine guns, and of course you do get one carrying your DP27. So really, really good. I think this is still quite expensive. I think they could reduce this maybe down to about 220, maybe 215 or 218, even though it is 80 men, relatively cheap. So I don't know, I feel a wee bit mixed about that. So now we're moving on to the Border Jaeger AT squad. Now that's different from your Jaeger AT squad. So you can see with these guys have actual AT rifles now, which look absolutely huge. So these are PDRD41, so we actually get 2 of them. So these things look like they can pack a massive punch. Looks like they won't be able to go through KV1s, but possibly your T34s, even maybe slightly lighter armored than that. But you can see the rest of them are carrying your Panzerfaust 30, which is absolutely great. So you can see that a couple of them are carrying it, able to deal with your light armor. Again, depending, you could possibly aim for a T34 at the engine, but at the frontally, you have no chance. So, but these guys actually are relatively good. These guys cost 253 manpower with 18 men. So that's actually, again, that is quite expensive, but for what you get, it's actually quite good. But if I had to choose between the Border Jaeger AT squad late and just the regular AT squad, I'd probably go for the Jaeger AT squad, just because you've got a guy that's carrying your massive big Panzer Shrek, which can deal with heavy armor, whereas the other one, your Border Jaeger AT squad late, doesn't have that. So I would probably pick the other one. And although the Jaeger AT squad is more expensive, I would still recommend it. But if you find that too expensive, then you can just go for the regular border Jaeger AT squad, which is considerably cheaper, but probably won't pack as much of punch on your heavy tanks or your medium tanks. So watch out for that. Finally, we are moving on to the last couple, and this is called the CC Commandos. Now these guys look absolutely elite. You can see that even though that one of them is carrying a Mosin, which is kind of disappointing for the name of these guys, but you can see that they're carrying your Sumoi weapons, with the rest of them looks like carrying SVTs, and of course you got that one guy carrying that machine gun at the very end here. It looks like a DP-27 again, if I'm correct in saying that, if I can get the camera to frickin' work. Oh nope, it's not. It's called a Lafati Salmoranta. Again, I'm not pronouncing that wrong, but it's good to see a change in your regular DP-27. I think this definitely looks like quite a modern rifle, to be fair, the way it looks. So I'm kind of glad they're changing it up a wee bit. Now the hit points of these guys are probably insane. Yup, 375 hit points with the regeneration being turbo 0.1. Their stamina being brilliant and the regeneration being brilliant at 7.5. Really, really good. Really do love it. So these guys are worth 16 men, which is actually cheaper than what the other squads have been, considered being 18 or 20. And they cost 184 manpower, which I think is relatively good. I think these guys are actually really worth it. I think, considered we're relatively cheap with cheaper men, so doesn't use so much in your echelon space, I think these guys are really worth it. I think these guys would be quite an underrated squad, so definitely go for these guys. And the amount of hit points and stamina they have is really, really good, and they could probably take a couple hits. Moving on to our last couple ones. So this is your veteran Jaeger squad late. I feel like I've done that one. No, I haven't. So sorry, this is the last one in the Jaeger squad. So this is a veteran Jaeger squad. These guys are different from your regular Jaeger squad because these guys are carrying quite a punch. These guys are again carrying your SVTs, and some of them are even carrying your Panzerfaust 30s, I believe. Is it two of them? Yeah, two of them are carrying, with one carrying your DP-27 machine gun, and of course being your MG assistant, which is really good. And then also at the very start, you can see that a couple of them are carrying your little machine guns, the name I can't pronounce of it. But if you look at the hit points of these guys, their hit points on the 375, I think that's kind of disappointing. I think these guys should deserve more, maybe put them up to about 380, maybe 385. With the regeneration being so bad, I think they kind of deserve more hit points. But their stamina, again, pretty good on the higher side, being 360. With the regeneration being the highest, it's been at 9.0. These guys are freaking fit. These guys are freaking bulking like crazy. They must have been on the treadmill for at least like 20 years. These guys are absolutely stacked with stamina. It is amazing. These guys will be, again, even quicker than clicking my fingers. These guys are really, really good. But again, with the weaponry they're carrying, it probably slows them down a wee bit. But I guess that's why the regeneration is so high. And then looking at the last and final squad that has been added is the AT anti-tank squad. Now, I know we already have this, but I think there's only two guys you get. But with these guys, you get, I believe, you get your the rifle squads that we've already covered, the anti-tank rifles which we have already covered. With a lot of them do carry your Panzerfaust 30, I believe. Yep. So that is now actually, I believe that's 4 of them carrying them, which is absolutely crazy. So these guys are really good at dealing with your medium to light armored vehicles. So overall, and these guys' hit points, I presume they would be great. Yeah, their hit points are disappointing at 200 with the regeneration would be 0.1. I think these guys deserve a lot more hit points. I know they're 18, they're meant to kind of maybe hide in the bushes and, ambush, a tank convoy, but really, I think these guys deserve maybe about 250, 260 hit points, considering regeneration rate is so bad and so low. The stamina, again, terrible, being at 125. I think that's really bad for these guys, with their regeneration being relatively good at 3.0. But I think if you're going to put base hit points of the stamina like that, I would buff up to maybe a 4.9 or a 5. I think they deserve it, considering that their stamina is quite bad on them. And of course, the last one, and this has probably already been in the game, but I thought it'd be cool to say, this is the Panzer Nest, which is basically just a moving bunker. You can see that it's got a little machine gun there at the front. A kind of guy goes in it and it moves, you know, along the battlefield. It can move, so you can kind of put it down in a place and then move it to a different part of the battlefield. This thing is really, really strong. You can throw like AP grenades or AT grenades. It wouldn't kill it, and it's brilliant for kind of holding a defense against infantry. Against lightly armored vehicles, it has no chance, but then again, for actually shooting, for the lightly armored vehicle shooting back, it won't have a chance against this because of how strong it is. I think it's got its health damage is, you know, is actually not that great, but that's because it's carrying a 7.92mm belt fed rounds, which again doesn't look great, but overall this thing can actually probably stand. I've tested this before, and this thing can go up against like Tiger 1 shells and it'll probably still survive. So this thing is really, really powerful, very much underrated, but I'd use it in a defense mission. So there you go, guys. That is the Finnish new late infantry squad. If you did like this video, make sure you subscribe. Let me restart that outro. I've been talking absolute shit today. If you guys like this video, make sure you subscribe. If you like to see more content like this, then make sure you like the button as well. And the next video I'll be doing with the last faction, which will be the American faction. So stay tuned to the channel for that. And if you want me to continue with this daily content, then support me, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. And other than that, guys, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching and all your support, and I will see you in the next video. See you later, and goodbye.